Today we talk about targeted cancer therapy. It's an incredible field and it makes huge progress every month that we are watching that field. Targeted cancer therapy can make a tremendous difference for cancer patients, but there are lots of things to understand and also some caveats about what's currently happening and the current status of care. The idea of targeted cancer therapy is to defeat cancer with precision medicine. And precision medicine is a fascinating new field that uses molecular diagnostics and genomics to apply targeted drugs that kill your specific cancer much more effectively, because the genomic diagnostics allow us to understand how the mutational makeup of that cancer looks like, how proteins are being changed in that cancer that make it so dangerous, and have drugs target these proteins very specifically to knock out only these cancer cells and have much less damage on the general system of your body. So before we jump into it, as always, important note, this is not medical advice, it's for informational purposes only, and it's not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Especially in cancer, it's very important that you always go to a doctor to have personalized advice. And if you don't like your doctor, find another doctor, but make sure it's a trained, board-certified professional. Genomics is currently changing oncology at a dramatic pace. In many cases, in many instances, 250% longer life expectancy in average is being achieved with targeted therapies. And we have over 250 FDA-approved drugs right now for targeted therapies and many more in the pipeline. We also, beyond that, have something that's called active disease detection. So genomics and precision medicine is not just something to have targeted therapies or inform targeted therapies. It can also be used to monitor the status and the effectiveness of your treatment in real time without invasive biopsies, mostly through blood samples. We can see how the mutational status in your blood changes, and that gives us information about the current status of your treatment and cancer. So let's take a look at some of the genes that are implicated here. For example, ALK, that's a gene that is implicated in lung cancer, where you have a certain translocation on the gene that changes the protein. And drugs like, crizotinib, for example, target specifically these changed proteins. Similar things, another example is BRAF V600E, that is a point mutation. We see that in melanoma, but I will discuss in a second what that means for other cancers. And you have also drugs here that target specifically only that changed protein that is implicated in cell growth and proliferation. Same for EGFR in lung cancer. Erlotinib is being used to target EGFR positive lung cancer patients or tumors. So in all these instances, precision genomics identifies in your tumor, by creating a personalized complete profiling of the tumor, identifies these translocations or these specific SNP variants and understands that your cancer is growing, or the cancer of the patient you're looking at is growing because a protein has been mutated and changed, and mostly in cell proliferation and growth implicated here. And by creating these targeted therapies and giving targeted drugs that knock out these mutated proteins, you become much more effective in knocking out the cancer, and you have much less impact on the whole system of the patient. Very different from chemotherapy, from broad therapy, because now all your regular healthy cells don't have that mutation. And when you target only the mutated protein, you're not attacking the BRAF proteins of your healthy cells, which means they can keep reproducing and proliferating in a healthy way, and only your cancer cells are being attacked. So as you can see, precision medicine and precision genomics allows these targeted therapies to really knock out the tumor, but not attack your healthy cells. Whereas conventional chemotherapy basically invades all your cells and creates tremendous damage. Now, as you see, I mentioned some of the tissues of origin or cancer types here, lung and melanoma and lung. But of course, this whole mechanics-driven, targeted therapy also opens up a new type of oncology where we look less at the tissue of origin. We say, well, what if we find an ALK positive breast cancer, right? What if we find a BRAF positive pancreatic cancer or prostate cancer? That happens. And so it's very interesting because we know that these targeted therapies don't care if it's a melanoma or lung cancer or prostate or colon or breast cancer, right? What they care about is that the BRAF protein has been mutated at, a specific location. And wherever that happens, that protein will get killed. The drug doesn't care if it's a melanoma, if it's in the skin or in the colon. So that leads to a new world where you can apply these targeted therapies across the board once you have a profiled tumor. which is very powerful. Now, in order to unlock that new era or possibility of targeted cancer therapies that can be tremendously effective, you need comprehensive and timely genomic profiling. So what does it mean? CGP, comprehensive genomic profiling. You take the cancer tissue from your biopsy, right? And you understand by sequencing it and applying complicated bioinformatics to it, what did we actually see here in the cancer? What mutations are present? And you can do the same thing with blood. That's more complex, but can be done, right? In lung cancer, for example, that's where standard of care is actually liquid biopsy to do that complete profiling. And you're looking at a lot of genes, 600 and more genes, which is a lot because each gene can have tens of thousands of nucleotides and can have all kinds of complicated changes on the gene. So these are very, very high-tech tests. You need gigabytes of data, billions of data points are being generated. There's hours of processing going on. And that is very important to get this done. And one of the key challenges here is that in order to do all these things, you need to complete your comprehensive profiling, genomic profiling of the tumor in a certain time frame. Because if you're new cancer patients, you come in, you get your biopsy. As a rule of thumb, that depends on the case, but if you had to pick a number, it's roughly 30 days that you have time from the initial first observation, first biopsy, to start of treatment. Because you can't just wait, right, if these results take too long, because you need to start treating the patient. And that's called the first line treatment. And in this first line treatment, you need to make sure that all of that stuff here is being completed before you start the treatment. And that is actually a big problem, because in the vast majority of instances, that's not happening today. People don't get the results in time. It's too complicated. They wait, they get a biopsy, they wait until the biopsy comes back, then they take a piece of the biopsy and send it over to an external lab, mostly not in-house in the hospital. That external lab starts then processing, which can take weeks, and suddenly you're already beyond the 30 days. The oncologist doesn't get the results and puts people on double platinum or standard chemotherapy because they just don't have the results, and then the results come in too late and they see, oh damn, I should have done targeted therapy, but I couldn't. I didn't know. So it's very important that this is being done, and there are hurdles to it. Some people don't even order it, other people don't get it in time. Now, if you do it effectively, then complete genomic profiling, understanding the mutational makeup of your tumor, can also unlock clinical trial access. And as you probably know, right now, over 500 targeted drugs are in trials, in FDA trials. So there's a tremendous range and opportunity for patients who might have no other option anymore. And these targeted drugs, of course, because they're targeted, they require genomic information. So in order, that's what most people don't know, in order to enroll in these clinical trials, you first need to have your genomic profile done of the tumor. So the trial knows if you are qualified to actually jump into the trial, because they might have new targets, KRAS, for example, and they need to know before they enroll you in the trial, do you have that mutation or not? And only if you have the mutation can you be enrolled in the trial, right? So in a lot of cases, not all, there might be other constellations, but in a very large share of these trials, complete genomic profiling is a required piece of the puzzle to then see your profile and put you into the right trial. Another reason to get this done. And of course, even if you have done trials, you need connectivity, even if you have all your profiling ready, because there's no automatic process to enroll you in a trial. You still have to find it. You need to find a physician who knows about the trial. They need to understand what the conditions for enrollment are, and they need to understand your genomic profile. It's a little complex, and it's important that you are synced and locked into or connected to networks who have that trial intelligence worldwide and see what is happening and what your profile is and give you advice on it. Now, one sad thing about targeted therapies in cancer is that the testing guidelines, which is the guidelines that tell oncologists when to order certain tests, are not always right. And of course, that's controversial because by definition, some people say guidelines are always right. That's why they're guidelines, but they're not. So guidelines are often informed, by economic considerations of Medicare and of insurance companies. They say, well, of course, it might be nice to know certain things about an early stage cancer patient, but we don't have outcome data that shows it's actually cost effective, so we do not approve that they get tested. So right now, the rule of thumb with Medicare in the United States is that advanced and metastatic cancer patients with solid tumors should get complete genomic profiling. So that means roughly stage 3 and 4 patients. And that also means that currently stage 1 and 2 patients are not green-lighted to get complete genomic profiling. But now that you understand why is this so important to identify these variants in the cancer, so we have targeted therapies, the question is, why would a stage 2 patient not benefit from that? And it's a total common sense thing that of course they benefit from it. Of course, if you have a BRAF positive melanoma in stage 2 and your oncologist decides or guidelines says you should actually get adjuvant treatment, of course a targeted therapy is much better. But for insurance reason, economics reason, it's not green lighted to get tested. That's where self-payers come in and you just say, okay, I pay $2,000 out of pocket to actually get profiled so I can actually get on that drug. It's a complex problem because it leads us also to the topic of financial toxicity. It's a new term that was introduced where patients are basically falling outside the insurance coverage because, for example, in this case, right, they know targeted therapies are important also in early stage, but the insurance is not willing to pay for it. They say, well, early stages, there are enough people who get successfully treated without targeted therapy, so we're not paying for that, even though it is clear that targeted therapy would be better, healthier, more effective. And so financial toxicity happens when patients decide they want a better treatment, but then the insurance doesn't pay for it and the patient is on the hook. So it's very important to understand there are many assistance programs for patients where the insurance for some reason rejects payments for testing or for treatment. And it's important that in most cases you're not alone, right? You have to figure out, is there support and are there non-profits or hospital advisory groups that help you with that? And often the answer is yes. Another problem with testing guidelines are very new technologies like liquid biopsies that become more and more effective with every half year, right? Every 6 months we see news that another study shows effectiveness. And what liquid biopsy can do, for example, is minimum residual disease and disease tracking, that when you are in treatment, liquid biopsy can trace and track the progress of that treatment or impacts of treatments on your mutational status in real time, with no invasive or damaging effects like a real biopsy would have, because it's just a blood draw. But again, mostly not reimbursed, only in very narrow cases, which is very sad because liquid biopsies definitely allow us to do much, much more in oncology. So how do you deal with these flawed guidelines? The answer is very simple. You need specialists who know that stuff. Specialists who are the cutting edge and the frontier of genomic medicine and targeted therapies. The people who actually craft the guidelines, right? The key opinion leaders. It's very important to get access to the right oncologists and specialists who understand the latest in liquid biopsy, the latest in complete genomic profiling, and the latest in clinical trials. So this is a rapidly evolving space where knowledge truly is power because it will allow you to get better treatment. And unfortunately, the effects of all these things is that most cancer care is actually not up to date. And that's, of course, you always get criticized when you say things like that, but there are clear statistics backing this up. Only 18% of cancer patients in the United States are actually covered with the right precision medicine tools. So that number stems from the study that shows that only 50% of cancer patients actually get the genomic testing they need. And of these 50%, 2/3 get the results not in time, which means only 18% of cancer patients actually are effectively covered with precision medicine, which is crazy when you think about it. When you think about that, survival rates go up to 150% in many instances. So that's a bad number. And the reasons for that is there are knowledge gaps. A lot of oncologists are not up to date on the latest. It's not to blame them. It's very complex and fast moving. New drugs are being approved constantly. New technologies in genomic profiling become available constantly. The insurance coverage changes constantly. So it's difficult, but in the end, it needs to be solved. Otherwise, patients will die. And there are process gaps that are not even the fault of the oncologist, but in the system, in the cancer care system, the processes need to be fine-tuned. At what point do you actually order the testing? Do you really have to wait until the biopsy report comes back, or can you do it in parallel if you don't have time? Can you insource, right? Bring genomics inside. That's a new paradigm in genomics. Genomics is being decentralized, and the best hospitals bring these genomic capabilities in-house. There are new solutions for hospitals out there that actually are very effective for them, but most hospitals don't know that yet. So you need genomic testing inside the hospital. You need this infrastructures ready. You need to have the right medical processes in place, and that's not the case for nearly all cancer centers today. Also rapidly changing, but all these things are in flux, and to really leverage this new capability, we need to get this done as fast as possible. And then finally, the problem here is, as you can tell at this point, this is an incredibly powerful new technology, targeted cancer therapies in conjunction with genomic diagnostics, that changes oncology dramatically. But it's also tremendously more complex than oncology was before. And oncology was already complex. But now it moves from, just demanding of a smart oncologist to learn a lot into billions of data points that need to be connected to millions of other knowledge data, points and entries in the cloud. No oncologist can do that. Now you need systems and you need centralized intelligence layers that do that. And I understand the technology landscape pretty well in this space. And I can tell you, today, 100% of cancer patients in the US could get covered with no problem, probably would save costs. But in order to do that, we need to build centralized intelligence in cancer care. And it's funny because I'm the guy who always says we need to decentralize genomics, but we have to centralize intelligence. Decentralized genomics means you need the install base, the actual laboratory, wet lab systems in each hospital. That's the future. But the brain needs to be centralized. The brain that connects this data and tells oncologists what's actually happening and what the right treatment for patients is. Centralization of this intelligence allows us to make sure that we have the best in class knowledge and experts on every single cancer patient across the country or across the world, and provide support via telemedicine to the oncologists on the ground. That new system is very easy to envision. Some people are working on it. For example, City of Hope, one of the great cancer centers, has the Access Hope program. They're mostly rolled out through employers where they can access the City of Hope capabilities even if you're far away from their centers in a different oncology ward. But there are still problems, so we need to introduce more technology to make this happen. It's complex, but can be solved, and it's incredibly important to bring targeted therapies truly to 100% of patients who need it. And with these new systems, we can provide access for all to best-in-class precision medicine. And I think that's always what I'm trying to convey in these videos. We are all in charge, right? It's not just one specific person or company or cancer center in charge. You as a oncologist or patient or doctor or investor or entrepreneur, we are all in charge of building these systems, because all of us are very likely affected directly or through family members by cancer. We all have the same interest here. We need to get targeted therapies and precision genomics into cancer care, and we need to make sure we are moving the needle from 18% of patients covered to 100%. And we need to make sure that everyone always gets the latest and cutting edge in targeted therapies because they're so transformative. And in order to do that, we are all in charge in building that centralized intelligence layer and making sure everyone gets access to the information and knowledge. What needs to be ordered, when, and what therapies are appropriate after the results are back in time. I hope this helps and you got a little insight into the world of targeted cancer therapy. It's a tremendous opportunity that is happening right now, and I hope we will see more progress in the years to come.